Hello, and welcome back to another Monarch Sealed Deck build video. My name is Jesse Marshall, and I hope you've been enjoying our Sealed Deck building video series. I'm very excited for the calling coming up here in Melbourne very soon, and excited to crack some sealed pulls. So let's get stuck straight in. Alright, what have we got here? So starting off with Seeds of Agony, a Dread Screamer, and a Canic Crackle. Wow, I mean, in terms of the first three cards, if you're going to get three Shadow cards, a couple of Chain and a Levia, those are all pretty nice ones to start with. Express Lightning, Herald of Ravagers, Courageous Steelhand, a generic Overload, a red Rising Solar-Tide, very nice one, Blinding Beam, bit of sideboard tech, a blue Rally the Rearguard, particularly nice in our more taxing decks like Levia and Prism, a blue Adrenaline Rush foil, Ironhide Plate, Prismatic Shield blue, and a Merciful Retribution. So two Prism rares, but not two of the more powerful ones. Prismatic Shield is a fine resource card. On a key turn, you can turn it into a weapon, or it's just pitches for 3. So I think a lot of people think this card isn't very good in Constructed, but I would caution you in Limited in particular to reevaluate this and actually value it quite highly. Like, I think a lot of the blues in Prism are very good because you want lots of threes, or blues rather, that pitch for 3. And if they give you a relevant effect, which creating a Spectral Shield to power your Iris of Reality certainly is a relevant effect, then they're pretty much worth having in your deck. Boneyard Marauder, which is unfortunately a 5. So not hitting that sweet spot for Levia. A Rip Through Reality yellow, which is very nice. Deadwood Rumbler blue, which is a 6 power attack and is a blue. So that's rare as hen's teeth and very important for those Levia decks. An Engulfing Light, a red Wartune Herald, and a red Spears. So some pretty powerful Prism attacks there. A red Blood Tribute, a yellow Surging Militia, a red Seek Enlightenment, nice one for Bolton in particular, and then a foil Luminar Ascension, also a nice one for Bolton, and a yellow Belittle. So a few Bolton tools here. Consuming Aftermath yellow and a Phantasmify red. So extremely powerful for 1 resource plus 5 off that Phantasmify. So always super nice to have in your Prism decks. Again, I've put a token in there on the first pack. So we've got an Ironhide Plate, an Ebb and Fold, and a Consuming Aftermath, which is yellow, unfortunately only a 5, so not ideal, but still we got a bit of power after only a couple of packs. Some pretty good cards there in Levia. Unfortunately not the volume that we would like in Chain, though all decent cards, and a couple of decent cards in Bolton too, particularly that majestic Luminar Ascension that we've picked up. So I could certainly see, particularly because the generics, I was going to say they slightly favour Bolton at this point, or the lower to the ground heroes, but to be honest, we've got 3 blues there, which are all decent in Prism or Levia, so I don't think that's really accurate as much as I would like it to be. Get that token out of there. So a red Bounding Demagon, there's some of the spice for Chain, and a yellow Riftbine, alright, and a blue Slaughter Beast, fine as a resource, but not a 6. A red Bolt of Courage, that's what we like to see. A blue Herald of Protection, a second swing, not the best, but, you know, more cards for the Warrior deck. Warmonger's Recital, good in any deck. A yellow Lunatide Plunderer, sorry about the glare there, exactly what we want to be seeing. 6s at, well, not generic, but generic for Shadow Heroes. 5 power red Surging Militia, another 5 power attack in Impenetrable Belief. A Talisman of Dowsing, and does this mean we've got 2 equipment? Yeah, so the double equipment pack, Ironhide Gauntlet Foil and the Gallantry Gold. That's nice to see. A Talisman of Dowsing, certainly a decent sideboard card against Chain. Ironhide Gauntlet, giving us 2 Ironhide pieces and a Gallantry Gold for Bolton. So with that Luminar Ascension, obviously, it doesn't mean we're definitely going to play Bolton with this pool, but Luminar Ascension is a pretty powerful card, and you're combining it. It makes cards like Second Swing a lot better. And having the Gallantry Gold obviously makes all of these things a lot better. So we can kind of keep an eye out and see the Bolton deck starting to come together. But now we've hit something which is really powerful. All of the majestic weapons are really good, and Dread Scythe in particular, it's 3 resources to attack with it, but whenever you attack with it, you deal 1 arcane damage to the defending hero. And a hero dealt damage by Dread Scythe can't gain life during their action phase. That part not so relevant, but the fact that you're dealing 1 unconditional damage every time you attack with it, extremely powerful. And that's where those blue generics, because it's 3 to attack, it's quite expensive resource-wise. That's where those blue generics are really going to come in handy. And then an out muscle as well. So we've got 2 pretty strong majestics here in Dread Scythe and Luminar Ascension, pulling us in 2 different directions. But we've also got, again, a pretty strong Prism pool. I mean, you can see all of the commons in Prism are just quite good, whereas the other decks do need a kind of a little bit more to go right for them to come together. Though we have hit a lot of Prism rares, to be fair. Smash with Big Tree Yellow, again, it's a 6. So we've got a 6 here in the Dread Screamer, 6 in the blue Deadwood Rumbler, and a 6 in the Smash with Big Tree. So we're starting to amass a few of those 6s. But here's a Piercing Shadow Vise. Now, it gets +2. It becomes a 2 for 6 if you've dealt arcane damage this turn. And the fact that we've got Dread Scythe as this source of arcane damage that is unconditional just makes Piercing Shadow Vises and Rip Through Realities just so much better. Unbelievably better, really. Another 6 in Graveling Growl. So I'm kind of, again, a little bit short on chain cards, but really wanting to try and make chain work here. So Ghostly Visit red is a really nice one for chain. Blinding Beam, a Frontline Scout. Yinty Yanti red, also a nice attack in chain, because you've always got a Soul Shackle in play, so you've always got an Aura in play, and your Yinty Yanti as chain is always going to be the buffed mode. So this is always going to be a 0 for 4, and it's always going to block for 3. A foil Wartune Herald. A Stubby Hammerers, also a really nice piece of equipment for chain. So right now we're looking at Ebonfold, Ironhide Plate, and Stubby Hammerers probably for chain, but we've also got that option of the Ironhide Gauntlet too. Captain's Call and a Seeping Shadows, both really nice chain cards. Captain's Call fine in other decks as well, but particularly good in chain to get you those extra go-agains on the turns where you're banishing several Blood Debt cards. That being said, I was going to say we're a little bit short on Blood Debt attacks, although we've got the Rift Through Reality, Bounding Demigod, Riftbind, and Piercing Shadow Vise, so we're at 4 plus the Ghostly Visit at the moment. So 5 total. Not too bad, but we do want to get that. I'd like to get up towards 10, ideally. Blood Debt attacks. That is a lot to ask for out of 6 packs, but that's kind of where I want to be at to be a bit sort of confident with the chain deck. So Rifted Torment, there's another Blood Debt attack. And Rifted Torment, not my favorite card, but the red version, happy to have that out of any of them. Another Dread Screamer, helping Levi's stocks a little bit. A blue Piercing Shadow Vise. So again, those Piercing Shadow Vise is exactly where we want to be. We can, particularly the blue, we can pitch it early to pay for a Dread Scythe attack, and then later in the game when it gets banished off the top, as long as we've got resources to pay for our Dread Scythe, which presumably will, because we'll be pitching blues early, we can then play the Piercing Shadow Vise from the Banished Zone as a 2 for 4, which is totally fine for a blue as well. Bolt of Courage. So I think we're a little short on Bolton cards to make that Bolton deck work. Generic 6 in red pound for pound here, about time. So in chain, we can also play this Lunatide Plunderer, so we can end up with the pound for pound and the Lunatide Plunderer as 6s, which is at least something. But yeah, a little short on Phantasm popping cards again. A red Spear Shadow, probably not going to make it in chain. Stony Wooten Hog, Illuminate, a Herald of Protection yellow, a Blood Drop Brocade, which we could play. It is definitely decent in chain. Once you've dealt damage, you can get just that extra resource on a key turn. May well be better than the Ironhide Plate. We'll have to have a think about that. Dimensional Gateway and a Consuming Aftermath. I've actually put Consuming Aftermaths in the Brute pile, but they are actually generic shadow cards. I often forget that because they have that kind of Brute art style. So they are certainly, both as yellows, definitely playable in chain as well. As a 3 for 5 that you can easily give Dominate with basically no downside. In fact, it enables your cards that you want to play from the Banish Zone that get a bonus when you do, like Riftbind. So yeah, Consuming Aftermath, definitely another good one to consider for Chain. Another 6 power attack in Smash with Big Tree, a Riftbind, a Graveling Growl. So Levia's looking okay, but again, I think Levia pulls, you know, you get a couple of Dread Screamers, you get a couple of other things, but there's really nothing exciting drawing me to that. Prism, on the other hand, is looking very strong. Like, we've got quite a few Herald of Protection here. We've got a blue and 2 yellows that we've just opened, and then a few other decent things. We haven't got any of the rare Heralds and things though, so not, you know, super enthused about Prism, but it's one of those things where I think every Prism deck just goes okay. But I think Chain's where it's at here. We've got this red Void Wraith coming through as well now. It's a 2 for 5 that can be played from the Banish Zone. Really happy to see that. You know, even pitching it early for 1 and then banishing it late can be really nice as a pretty meaty attack to be getting on one of those later turns. A Stony Wootenhog yellow, also happy to play that. Captain's Call, Halo of Illumination, another really good one for Prism. So yeah, this Prism deck would certainly be decent. But we finish off with a Majestic Invert Existence, which can be a really great way to close out games. It's unlikely, it's certainly possible that they'll have no non-attack actions, even in Limited, but I think most decks are likely to have at least 1 or 2, so Invert Existence will probably go off, and you'll probably be able to deal damage, but even worst case scenario, you pitch it as a blue early, particularly with that Dread Scythe, to pay for a Dread Scythe attack, and then later on you banish it. Even if you can't get the damage effect off, you can still play it out of your Blood Debt zone, so there's not Blood Deading you, and that's a totally fine trade. Like, that's worst case scenario. Best case scenario, it's something that they can't even defend with a Spell Void 1, and they die to, or it's just something that's like an uncounterable 2 damage if they don't even have any Spell Void. So yeah, certainly a powerful Majestic to finish on for Chain. So let's take a look. I mean, this Prism deck would be okay. It's just kind of a middle of the road, nothing too special, run-of-the-mill Prism deck with maybe an extra 1 or 2 Herald of Protections on top of what you'd get on average. However, this, put those over there, Levia deck will get out. Really nice looking Luminar Ascension. Always nice to get that in foil, but unfortunately the Boltyn deck, despite a Take Flight, just not quite enough cards and not enough firepower to lure us away from the promise of the Dread Scythe here. So we'll get rid of these as well. Our equipment suite is going to be the Blood Drop Brocade, Stubby Hammerers, Ironhide Gauntlet, Ebonfold Ironhide Plate. So we don't have, so we've got head, chest, arms, no legs. We've got 2 choices in the arms and 2 choices in the chest, the Ironhide and the other generic option. Both Stubby Hammers and Blood Drop Brocade just really work well in Chain to give you a bit more power on those key turns. So I think I would default to playing those. But yeah, certainly the Ironhides can work if you feel like you're in a matchup where you just want to be a little bit more defensive or have the capacity to absorb a little bit more on a key turn. So we'll do the attack action, non-attack action division again. We'll just make these all into one big pile. Actually, what I like to do when I'm building Chain decks, and you've seen this before, is have Blood Debt cards separated. So we'll put Blood Debt non-attacks and attacks up here. I put instants in with non-attacks, not really a problem. And then the non-Blood Debt cards down below, divided, or as always, into blue, yellow, and red pitch. So having a few of these blue pitch Blood Debt cards is going to be really nice for us, because early on we can be using our Dread Scythe. And even the yellows will help to pay, not necessarily for the Dread Scythe, but for another attack on that turn, because obviously we can give our Dread Scythe go again, which is just pretty rude. If you can have a 4-card hand or a 3-card hand that consists of pitch a blue for a Dread Scythe, give it go again with your Soul Shackle, then pitch something else for another attack. That's a really strong 3-card turn in Limited to be, and considering one of those cards that you're using to pretty good effect is your weapon, it does feel pretty rude. All right, so those are that's all our class cards. So we've got 3, 5, 7, 10 cards which we can play from the Banish Zone. I would have liked to get to 10 attack actions, but I think 10 cards in total is okay. 1 Seeds is not ideal, but we've got a lot going on here with the Dread Scythe and a decent number of cards that we can play from the Banish Zone. Stony Woodenhog, Zealous Belting. Happy to play the Zealous Beltings, even though we're not necessarily going to get to go again with them. We do have a few options to get go again with things like the Outmuscle, pitch Outmuscle to play yellow Zealous Belting, for example. But yeah, if we do want to cut them, we might. Talisman of Dousing is a fine sideboard card. A couple of Surging Militias, really nice to close out games later. Obviously, we could banish them off the top and lose them, but hopefully that won't happen. Happy to play a few more cards in chain as well, just so that we don't mill ourselves out, particularly when we've got the power of the Dread Scythe. Like we just don't want to run out of cards. I think that's going to be pretty important for us here. And having some powerful ways to have some big turns with these Captain's Calls is going to be good. We also don't want to play too many reds because of the Dread Scythe. So things like this Frontline Scout might miss out. But Yinty Yanty, Pound for Pound, Surging Militia, Arcanic Crackle, all of those are just really high impact good reds that we're happy to play. Belittle is generally pretty good in chain. Let's see, I don't think we've got any Minnowisms here, do we? Not that I've seen so far. So it's not going to be amazing, but a 1 for 2 go again. It's just, I don't think going to make it. I don't think it's going to be exciting enough. Void Wraith, there's some more play from the Banished Zone cards. Forgot about our Shadow cards. Well, that gets us much closer to actually where we want it to be. That gets us up to 9 cards that we can play from the Banished Zone. I know that having more reds might not be ideal because we can't pitch them to pay for our weapon, to get them to the bottom of the deck, to banish them later. Some of them will get banished naturally. Some of them we can just pitch for 1 as well, like to pay for various things, to pay for other attacks, or even just to pay for part of a Dread Scythe. That's a fine trade to get them on the bottom. Spew Shadow, we do need a couple more non-attack actions to trigger some of our cards, particularly the Banning Demagon. Actually, that might be the only one that we can only play if we played a non-attack. Yeah, it does help pump up our Riftbinds, though, to have a couple more non-attacks in the deck. Although this Spew Shadow is really not going to do much for us, because all of our attacks that are going to be banished that we care about, we can play from the Banished Zone. I guess there are some attacks. Surging Militia? Yeah, maybe this. It does cost 4 to play this into a Surging Militia, but Spew Shadow into Surging Militia, like that's not a bad use of 4 resources, so I could see that working out. Lunatide Plunderer makes it in. The 2 Consuming Aftermath. So we've got a lot of yellows here. That is a bit awkward. I would kind of like to have a few more blues to make this deck work. We've only ended up with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 blues, which is a little on the low side. So quite often we're actually going to end up pitching 2 cards to pay for our Dread Scythe, which is not ideal. That's very, very awkward. As to, like, it's so awkward that I would almost consider playing the Galaxy Black over the Dread Scythe, just because of the consistent pressure that we can get from the Galaxy Black. Sheesh. Yeah, Dread Scythe is just powerful enough that even if we can do it on a few turns, and particularly turns later in the game, I think I'm okay with playing it over the Galaxy Black. And I think we do have enough. Oh, I've put the Captain's Calls in here. I've definitely done put the non-attack actions in the attack action pile this time. And I've done this the wrong way around. No, I haven't. I just don't have any blues there. Okay. Whew. Just getting myself sorted in my piles here. We've also got a Warmonger's Recital that we need to get out into this pile. Okay. So I think we have enough attack actions that we're not going to be running into too many turns where we have too many actions and not enough to do with them. And I think even if we can't Dread Scythe every turn, the fact that we can Dread Scythe late in the game, I think, is enough to make it worth playing. And I think we're probably going to have enough gas to just go over the top of our opponent, hopefully. Yeah, so I think it might not be ideal, and ideally, you can't get everything you want in Limited. Ideally, we would have ended up with a few more blues, but let's count this up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 18, 19, 20, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 30, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 35. We might cut things like this Frontline Scout as a bit of a kind of lower impact yellow. Take us to 34. As I said, I'm happy to play more than 30 generally, but also specifically in this deck where we want to keep some cards in our deck and not get fatigued out. So maybe we'd consider playing like the red and the yellow Frontline Scout, maybe the Belittle, but I think this is probably the good balance of having slightly more than 30 cards plus playing mainly higher impact cards. Yes, the resource curve is not exactly as we might like it, but I still think it's decent. So that's what I'd probably sleeve up with this chain pool. If you have any different thoughts or things that you think could have been done differently, please let me know in the comments. But otherwise, I hope you've enjoyed the video. I'll be back with some more videos from the rest of this box very shortly. And we'll be back with some more general fab content. Don't forget to like and subscribe and let me know what you'd like to see in terms of fab content on the channel going forward. Cheers.